And we are live with the Lesson Learned podcast. Sorry for the delay. Some minor technical difficulties. Also having very off-stream, off-camera, well, on camera but off-stream conversations about video games, which may or may not include pooping pigeons. Just to warn you. Yeah. So today we're gonna have something different. In the later half of the program, usually about the half an hour mark, we're going to talk about what our ideal game should be. And this is going to be generic game, and maybe we're going to do with a couple of more weeks. We might talk about our ideal CRPG, our ideal platformer, point and click, whatever. We go into specifics. But the reason I want to do this is because I'm personally tired of all the bad news and stupidity from the video game industry.
All the doom and gloom of just watching the gaming industry just eat itself.
Yeah. I mean, you can only talk about how bad microtransactions are. And by the way, congratulations to Comrade Jim of Jim Sterling, The Inquisition. His latest video was very informative, but also, very sad. I'm like, wow. I'll probably put a link to it in the doobly-doo, as we would like to say, in the chat, because it's important. But that doesn't mean we're really gonna talk about it. If you wanna, Inquisition.
And the thing with that too, it's not just it's not video games as we know it, like consoles and PC games. It's also a lot of browser and Facebook games. I noticed that seems to target generation. There's actually one that I kind of got into, and it's the only, I think, time I paid any microtransactions. And it was because it was that psychological move. It's like, hey, it's $10 worth of microtransactions for $1.
So if you want to tackle this issue of gaming addiction and gambling addiction and all that, we talked a little bit last week about that. We're going to be the VODs probably up today or tomorrow. But that's the title of the video, and here's the link. I usually put links without titles, so this time around, it's a very important video. We're not really going to talk about it because it's gosh darn depressive. It's like, oh dear, no. Could we not do that today? That would be fine. That would be great. So we're going to talk about some of it. I mean, we're probably going to talk about things like G2A and pirated copies and all of that. But
Shenmue 3.
Shenmue 3, etc., etc. But let's start with something sort of weird that I just came across a minute or so ago. There is, of course, or there will be a pigeon simulator. And according to PC Gamer, their title of the piece is Poop on Everything in Pigeon Simulator. Command an Avian Menace in Bossa Studios' next wonky Sims. So that sounds like Goat Simulator. I guess it's sort of the same idea. Just sort of kind of give control over a bird and do whatever. Like, after revealing the secrets of goat and bread, it's the first paragraph. The physics wizards at Bossa Studios are now shining the spotlight on the true masters of Earth cities, the mighty pigeon. Like Goat Simulator, Pigeon Simulator looks like another sandbox where mayhem is the goal. And as you can see in the announcement trailer, above pigeons are pretty skilled in sowing chaos. So yeah, it just seems like, and they show a couple of pictures, like show like a pigeon with hits head through a piece of bread and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I never played Goat Simulator, but I mean, I think people thought it was sort of a.
It's just like a haha novelty thing.
Yeah,
it's one of those that got popular when during everyone making those like those asset flips, funny physics games.
Yeah, but it seems that they had a hit on their hands. It also was called, you see, back in the day, it was called PewDiePie bait, right? Because he would probably showcase these things, or some streamers would show it, right? I haven't showcased Goat Simulator. I don't know if I'm going to try for Pigeon Simulator, but the idea nonetheless seems kooky, and I like it. I like the idea of just having a game where you just have fun and just mess around with goats and pigeons, as long as you're not killing them or anything. I don't, you're treating them like they're Sims or something. Then It's fine by me. Talking about hilarity, according to PC Gamer again, a hilarious Capcom shareholder didn't hold back at a recent meeting. The shareholder wants the company to do something about their son's opinion of Capcom graphics.
Hmm.
Oh,
What?
okay. But as Nico Partner senior analyst Daniel Agmat, I apologize to Mr. Daniel Agmat, pointing out on Twitter, a Capcom shareholders meeting held back in June was an exception to the rule. You can read the full transcript here, but there's really one visitor on or troll who sneaked in, who needed to know about they begin their barrage with an all-time favorite shareholder question. My son is a fervent online player, but says that Capcom graphics are unsophisticated. Please do
Hmm.
something about this.
Okay. Well, Capcom graphics for the most part are kind of like they're cartoony almost. They're not. They don't try to go for like the photorealism, and even when they try to go for kind of close to like I guess realistic graphics, they're still they don't try to look photorealistic. I'm thinking of like Dead Risings. Like, oh, you can definitely tell they're supposed to be people and they're not supposed to be like kooky cartoons, but they're still kind of like a that hint they're not trying to go for realism, like super realistic, like Last of Us graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is fine. It's like you don't have to make everything look like you're watching a movie.
No, you shouldn't try, because the uncanny valley usually defeats it. So
But
yeah,
like, what was the point of that? It was just supposed to be like, oh, ha ha ha.
I think it's
I
a troll. Yeah, I think somebody who's not getting into into the call, because it's an investor call, right? And
yeah.
that's what they. So yeah, I mean, but it is like, well, my son wants better graphics. Could you do something about it? Because I'm a very important person and I invest in your company.
Yeah, and
Uh,
and then most of like their IPs are not really like incredibly realistic. I'm thinking of like Street Fighter and Mega Man. It's like
yeah.
no.
Yes, men who can punch through walls with their fist on magical fire, and women who can high kick and juggle in the air. Basically giants with their massive thighs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's realistic at all. No, no. Yeah, so let's not do that. In other news, Cuphead, The Delicious Last Course DLC has been delayed to 2020. I don't play Cuphead, but a Huckleberry, who is one of the followers of the program and also has his own channel, you should check it out. He's a graphic artist, very talented. He's a Cuphead player. And I mean, I heard a lot about Cuphead. I was intrigued when it first came out because of the graphics, but I maybe I should play it. It's one of those things like maybe I should play it. I think it's a perfect sort of Switch game, and I don't have a Switch. Not saying that it's a downgrade from having a PC. It's just like I imagine it's a kind of the game that you want to play on your Switch, like
A
very intently,
handheld.
yeah,
Yeah.
handheld. And I think that's one of the reasons why I hold out. So yeah, they're having more DLC, which is pretty good. Um, People say, "Well, you hate microtransactions and you hate this." Like, listen. I like DLC that expands on a good product. Give me a solid core of a game that I enjoy, and then you give me more of that. I'm all for it. And also like the fact that DLC that actually I can choose not to buy it if it doesn't, seem to fit what I want to play. It's that simple. Actual choice. Who knew? Yeah. So yes, Cuphead is getting more DLC, but it will be in
And that's
2020.
and honestly, like that's even interesting. Because we've like Cuphead was kind of something that was like I guess announced. I feel like way long ago and took way longer than anyone expected to even come out. Like I'm sure most people thought it might even become like vaporware
Mm-hmm.
just because and I'm sure it was probably hell having to do everything hand drawn and just to mimic that art style. So I can totally understand if, well, first off, I'm like, there was like Cuphead even getting any kind of DLC. Like that seems kind of like ambitious to begin with, considering I guess the development hell that was probably was the original Cuphead. And then to see it delayed, it's like, well, that's kind of understandable.
Hmm. I mean, the fact that it has been a success, so more power to them. On
Yeah.
something that Young Ye reported on, but it apparently was a bit of a mistake. CD Projekt Red says it's not actually working on multiple Cyberpunk games, according to PC Gamer. It says the byline is Google Translate does it again. So I guess there was a thing. CD Projekt Red says that despite what you may have read today on the internet, it is not currently working on multiple Cyberpunk games. Report emerged as a Polish site, Bankier.pl, I guess Bankier.Poland, which quoted CD Projekt President Adam Kaczynski. Hope I didn't mess that up either. As saying, we're working on 3 Cyberpunk things over the main game and over two more. But the code came via Google Translate, and as you can see, things were a little bit mangled coming out of the other end, which led to confusion. They're working on DLC. That's what he was talking about, right? But not new games. And I don't, it's too early to talk about a sequel already. I'm sure the pre-orders have been pretty heavy, but no.
Yeah, I think the article sort of the Google Translate kind of says like, oh, we're really pleased with like the pre-orders and stuff. But like the thing I think that article in Botchly Translated mentioned like a multiplayer spinoff, which is like, I don't know about that.
Yeah. I don't know if we sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's like that seems kind of odd that you're putting everything into like this game that's about to like come out in like 9 months, and it's supposed to be massive and your most ambitious project yet, and then to be kind of like splitting yourselves to be working on multiple projects doesn't seem smart, especially considering that we keep hearing about crunch and everything. And CD Projekt Red, is right now they're kind of like the public darling of the gaming industry, aren't 100% like innocent in their practices with their employees as well. So it's kind of like, ooh, I'd be kind of like cringy, like, oh, let's taper our expectations and stuff.
And talking about the cringer aspects and that right one calls demonic aspects of video game design, we were going to avoid the sad news, but there's still news. This is quoting PC Gamer, a Kotaku piece, and I don't think we talked too much about it last week, but I think it's worth repeating. Treyarch testers describe sweatshop conditions working on Black Ops 4. So yeah, 7 days ago, so we missed it in the last podcast. Roughly the news came out about the same day we were recording. So here's the title to the thing. That's the title to the PC Gamer. Yeah.
And wasn't Jason Schreier that also did another expose?
Yeah, he's coming up aces, my friend. People complain about video game journalism, but and Kotaku a lot, with some good reasons. They're not perfect, but Jason Schreier's been doing great work. And again, this is another story, particularly about QA and how even when other workers in the video game industry are not treated well, the QA testers usually are under contract, usually get paid minimal wage, and they're literally traded talked to as they were served. Like, oh, there's an example, which is there's a party. You can come to the party for like 15 minutes, maybe take a refreshment or something, but you can't get any of the beer or whatever, and then you have to leave. Like, well, then I'm sorry, Twitch, I'm gonna say it. Then fuck you. I'm not gonna. If my boss tells me, I'm gonna take 15 minutes. If it's everybody if it's a little thing like, oh, we're gonna have a little treat, and we're gonna have a table, and everybody can, you kind of cycle through all the office because you have only so much for so many people. I've been in situations like that, and people go, they talk a little bit, they take their little plate and go back to wherever they have to go. Right, that's perfectly normal. But there's a party in your offices, and and we talked about that, about the whole thing about being even having a party in the premises can be a bit sketchy. So
and well, especially when alcohol is involved. But like the thing is too, it's like So the party thing, it's like we've had parties, but of course, or not even parties, more like potlucks at work, and it's like you gotta, you kind of eat, you might mingle, and then you go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it's like no, you have to go back to work because you're scheduled to work 12-hour days, and also if we do cater like stuff, like you're not allowed to have any. You're peasant contractors. You're not real employees, even though you do a lot of our work for us.
Yeah, like ensuring that the game actually is functional and working, and playable. But peasants, I say. Um, this is an odd news again for PC gaming. Our piece of news. After nearly 34 years, Microsoft reintroduces Windows 1.0. Not even 3 point.
1.0.
Yeah, the basic Windows. Microsoft is acting like it just woke up from a 3-decade coma on its Twitter and Instagram account. The company is hosting the all new Windows 1.0. What? That's yeah. PC gamers as baffled as I am. Not 10, by the way. 1.0. Windows 1.0 debuted nearly 34 years ago on November 20, 1985. It consists of 16-bit graphical shell built on top of MS-DOS. Microsoft intended to be the usual use with a keyboard, but mouse support was also baked in, even though mice were not all common back then. So I guess it's just November, so it's not even like it's not even 35 years of, because we're not in 2000. I don't know.
It's like they might be just trying to get away from like naming their or numbering their versions. Maybe it's just like, oh, Windows version's 10 now, version 11. Well, even then, isn't Windows 9 technically Windows like 9?
Mm-hmm.
Or Windows 10 is Windows 9 technically? I
It
think.
depends. If you, for example, went because in between 1999 and 2003, there was Windows 2000, Windows NT. There was, I think, Windows Express and other Windows as well. So there were like 4 Windows operating systems, 3 to 4 that were released within 3 years of each other. Technically, they were for different purposes, but they were all out there in the market at the same time. So you could get a PC with a Windows NT, which is supposed to be for networks, but also 2000 and so 2000. There's a 2000 version, so that goes went from 3 point something to 2000 to there's XB and I mean the numbering is just all over the place. There's 8.0, 8.1. The 3.x era, we started with 3.0, 3.1, which I think was most popular, and 3.3. And so there are a lot of versions. Maybe they want to do that thing where they just want to sort of reboot it. But if they do reboot it to an earlier era, I want my, pinball machine, I want that back. That's what I want.
I remember that little demo, the little pinball demo, like on a crappy machine that like doesn't like could barely even run that.
Yeah. Oh, I had a lot of fun with that. It only had one game, but hey, I loved it. Oh, no, something we were talking about before the podcast began. Epic pledges to cover refunds on crowdfunded games that go EGS exclusive. That's Epic Game Store exclusive. Team Sweeney said that Shenmue 3 situation won't happen again.
Didn't he say that? Like, oh, we promise not to poach games. And then it's like, oh, we promise not to poach games as Steam changes their thing. And then it's like...
For those who don't know,
Yeah.
this again is from PC Gamer, but old Jim Sterling also did a link to this as well, and some others. What happened was that over the last 2 to 3 months, maybe a month or so, even less than a month, it feels like a lot of time, but not really. Not only has Epic gone and tried to get as many exclusives as possible, including poaching them from Steam, but they have been going after games that were crowdfunded, and part of their crowdfunding was that it was going to be available on Steam. So the people who crowdfunded the game expected it to be available on Steam as a platform, whether they choose to buy, to get it from Epic or not. And it's like, that didn't look so good because it seemed like they were breaking a promise that people actually paid money to get thing. And it was like, okay, we're just going to give you money back. We're going to cover the cost. So, yeah.
Well, at first they didn't want to refund the money because, like, no, well, we could kind of already spent that money. But apparently, like, Epic is saying, no, we're going to flip the bill on anyone who wants these refunds. Like, we, Epic, are going to pay for it. And so that way we're not taking money from the development of Shenmue 3. Because, yeah, like, apparently they're supposedly they're taking all this extra Epic money and putting it into the game, adding more to the game that like all those extra stretch goals that they didn't actually hit. They're going to be adding those features because of this Epic money, allegedly. So well, I guess we'll see what the end product is, because I've also heard that like some of the things that they did hit their stretch goals with aren't going to be in the game. So that's kind of like, okay.
Well, I suppose, I mean, you can, that's the thing about, crowdfunding, is you can promise a lot to get people to give you money, and then it's like, well, we actually can't implement all these things, so thanks for all the fish, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. And Jim Sterling described this as a power move, and if I was like, what? And then like, oh, because basically saying we have enough money to take in that hit of paying, I don't know how much. It could be thousands, it could be millions, depending on how many people want their money back. And yet we keep the game, and we still release it, and we believe it's still gonna make us money, right? And screw you, Steam, right? And I'm like, okay, but that sounds like a petty cartoon villainy kind of thing, where it's like, oh, I'm going to do a thing that is mildly moral just to get more profit. It's like, okay, sure.
And the thing is, it's like Shenmue apparently has just been a non-profit like franchise in general, and it's like the fact that it needed to be kickstarted to get like the third part out, and needed all this backing too, not even just from the fans, but from Sony, from Deep Silver, from now Epic. It's like, how much, like, are they really expecting to get any kind of like return on their investment? Like, considering that the first two games were like not successful.
I mean, I think that's why it had to be Kickstarter, right? Because
yeah, and I think that's the point of like Kickstarter. It's supposed to be like, it's to make the game. And can you really honestly, it'd be one thing if like Epic was like, we want to support this game because whatever his name is now, I forgot. You just said his name, I can't remember. It's
Tim
like,
Sweeney.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm a fan of Shenmue 3 and I want to see part 3. Here's all the money.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it went down.
Yeah, no, it's like, that this is going to be like a thing where it's like, hey, we got this exclusive game, everyone kickstarted, maybe you want to buy it on our storefront.
I think it's more of creating again that marketing talk of engagement, right? There is enough of a hardcore audience for this that they're willing to give collectively millions of dollars to create a game, which means if they associate the game with the Epic Store, then win-win, right? It's like, it's that brand loyalty. Only in Epic Store can you get the games that Steam won't give you, because they're not going to shell out money to make sure this game is worth made, right? They want to turn essentially a monopolistic strategy into one that sounds like it's been done for our benefit, which I don't care for, to be honest. I mean, it's a fight between companies, so and it's one of them where people say, competition breeds, it's good for business and for the consumer, but in this case, I'm not seeing many of the benefits of any whatsoever, and not the way they're going through. Talking about competition, and this comes from mostly indie developers. Again, PC Gamer, and I first saw it when Jim Sterling's channel. Developers tell people to pirate their games instead of using G2A. G2A is an infamous key reseller. Essentially, when you get a key from Steam and you haven't activated, it belongs to you, and it's a one-time essentially encryption pad. That's what it is, and so you can sell it to a third party. It's not illegal. And G2A is one of those that resell those keys. The problem is that, they're infamous from getting the key, not really checking where the keys come from, and whether or not, for example, they were bought with fraudulent credit card numbers. So yeah, it's this is how the PC Gamer describes G2A right off the bat. G2A, the gray market purveyor of game keys, has once again drawn the ire of game developers less than keen for their games to feature on G2A digital shelves. They previously clashed with Tiny Build and Gearbox, and that was more a mistake of pre-box, mistakes. But a recent ad push has seemed it condemned by more developers, and some even saying they'd rather players torrent than buy their G2A from G2A. In other words, one of the reasons why that is that, a pirated copy is not a sale. Because if it turns out that it was bought fraudulently, so for credit card, it usually falls to the publisher and or developer, if they're self-publishing to Steam or other platform, to pay back the money. So it costs them more for a game they never sold to begin with. They actually is a net loss. Publisher Mike Rose noted the search for this game or placed G2A ads for them above the publisher's own link. We make zero money on our games if people buy them through ads, he said. He recommended people consider buying a game through G2A, just pirate it instead. So there's the fact that they... This is Mike Rose saying, basically, we don't see any penny either. We'd much rather G2A didn't see any money either. Another developer, Action Hank, developer Squid Games, and Vlambeer's Rami Ismail, with another tweet, please torrent our games instead of buying them from G2A. If you can't afford or don't want to buy our games full price, please pirate them rather than buying them from a key reseller. These sites cost us as much potential dev time in customer service, investigating fake key requests, and figuring out credit card chargebacks and more. So it's a net loss, right? For them.
Yeah. Well, even then, it's not even like a net loss. It's like a deficit because you're having to pay sync resources and dealing with, and sometimes those chargebacks come with a fee as well.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess for full disclosure, when I started on YouTube channel, one of the the bots, basically, that's a bot that sort of search out new YouTubers, was a G2A bot who said, hey, you're talking about video games, would you like us to sponsor you? And I was like, I never heard about these guys before. And then I did a little digging and I was like, hell no, I don't want anything to do with these folks. So yeah, my advice is, pirate the game. I mean, indie developers, you shouldn't pirate the game,
Well, buy the game through legitimate storefronts, but if you really have no intention on buying it through a legitimate storefront and are even considering buying it on G2A for dirt cheap, you might as well just pirate it.
Yeah.
As they ask.
Talking about controversies, Mordhau developers address controversy, saying they won't add gender or race filters. After a controversial interview with PC Gamer discussed, this is in Kotaku, talk about a PC Gamer article, players' use of slurs and potential implementation of race or gender toggle. The game developers issued a statement this morning to clarify their stances. They now say they had no plans to add an ethnicity toggle to Mordhau, adding in a statement they are a stretched thing and do not have the staff to moderate everything out of our intended level of standards. Essentially, there was a thing where they were going to say, oh, we're going to open up the game so you can make multiple races, but if you essentially want to have a toggle where that's not allowed in your game, we're going to add that to it. So if you want to, from a fantasy game, medieval fantasy game, you don't want the blacks or the browns or the yellows, right? Or even a few reds, because I don't know where they come from. But yeah, or I don't know, aquamarine people. Not to mention, gay, lesbians, and, trans folk and all that. Not that you're less to be included, just, throwing it down there because all the things that people apparently don't want, or some people don't want, they were going to throw a toggle that says, Yeah, you can't have that. Uh,
Hmm.
Made by a small indie team called Threaternian, the medieval hack and slash PC game has become enormously popular since its late April release. It's already out there. Alongside its growing player, according to PC Gamer, has been a growing issue with bad player behavior, including racism, sexism, and homophobia. Gamers, rise up. While hundreds
So
have been banned on forums on Discord, one or more households that seem wishy-washy about what constitutes harassment or hate speech in their interview with PC Gamer. So,
so so let me see if I got this straight. So there's this medieval fantasy game that you can make your own character, I take it. And so people can actively toggle off away. Oh, it's like I don't want to see black people in my fantasy game, so they press a toggle and like it recolors everyone else's who's black.
I think it doesn't allow for the creation of those characters or something to the trick. I mean, it's very weird. The whole thing is very weird. This. I'm going to quote from the response, which is quoted in the Kotaku article. In response given, we're referring to the gender part of the questions, which are based on old controversial gender toggle idea, with the intention being give the players the option to play the game with only female characters, only male characters, or both. This concept was brought forward by one of our developers supported prior to the game's release as a response to a large number of heated debates regarding the topic of realism.
The idea I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, the idea to give players the ability was simply a theoretical solution to a difficult problem. I was never intended to be official stance of Tritanian on this topic. This is less known for us, and we must excessively prudent with the wording we use in the future, as we can be easy to misconstrue an individual opinions and yes, officially sanctioned. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it from the start, people are gonna have to choose whether or not they're gonna put up with it or not. But having a toggle, like no women's in my games or no dudes in my games, I suppose.
That technically wouldn't be historically accurate. Well, so this is a long debate, and for like legitimate, like I want to see historic. Well, first, like if this is supposed to be set at some period, it's like, yeah, there's certain classes of people that wouldn't be in like this region of the world or have this status or be able, they'd be peasants or they'd be slaves, and it's like, but at the same time, this is a freaking fantasy game. Unless it's trying to sell itself as realistic, it's like, okay. And honestly, it's when people bring that up, when the game's not being sold as like realistic, and when people start bringing it up, oh, it's not realistic that like, you have a black noble or something, and like whatever, King Arthur times, Camelot times that don't exist. It's like you really, do you really have that much of a problem seeing people of color, people with a different shade of skin, in positions of power or just in existing in the world? It'd be like, hey, what's that Mexican doing here? There's no Mexicans in Europe at this time.
Yeah, and also I think a lot of people get their history wrong to begin with. Like, after all, Europe, Africa. It's only like a sliver of water separating that.
Yeah, and of course,
Eurasia.
And of course, I think some people think that like at certain areas that maybe like gender roles were more restrictive at some point, which I'm sure there's like outliers, or gender roles weren't like strictly followed.
Yeah.
Granted, they probably weren't like gay friendly or anything, but they're like, oh, it's a woman. She's just like some oddball woman who likes to fight with a sword. We don't care. Yeah. Your camera's getting a little blurry.
Oh, sorry. Probably because I'm moving a bit too much.
There you go. But yeah, oh wow, that's just, I guess it's just full of yikes. Just ooh.
But it's not over yet. We also have Blizzard. Blizzard responds to accusation of censorship in Hearthstone's latest patch. Apparently, some card art was changed in Hearthstone, right? In the upcoming Saviors of Oldum expansion, Blizzard Entertainment released a patch yesterday that ran a couple of housekeeping alterations to make way for new content. The update removed some of the older cards from the game's standard mode, added some new cards to the game classic set, and in a move that stirred up tons of controversy, apparently, changed the art of 8 old cards. At first glance, the card art changes seem to make the card either less sexy or less violent. The card Eviscerate, which has always been one of the most popular spells in games, was changed so that there's no longer any blood in the art. The card Succubus, which used to depict a whip-wielding demon of lust, is now called a Fellstalker, and it's like a run-of-the-mill four-legged demon with massive jaws. The response from spokesperson for Blizzard is the following. Recent changes are applied to make the cards more visually cohesive and consistent in the art style of Hearthstone today. When Hearthstone first launched, we thought a lot of artwork from the physical World of Warcraft trading card game. In the years since, Hearthstone has developed a look, feel, and personality of its own that distinguishes from that of Warcraft. So we still love being a part of the universe. We'll always be looking for ways to deliver of the game's unique style, charm, and personality. Yeah, it's I mean, it's like it reminds me of the controversy or lack thereof of Tracer's butt pose. Like there was a parents like, hey, listen, I have kids and this seems a bit too much. Hey, okay, we'll change it because we have a lot of children that are playing this game in Overwatch.
So instead of posing her butt with her back towards the audience on 2 feet, she poses her back towards the audience, just standing on 1 foot. Ooh.
Yeah, I feel like, oh my god, the butt's gone. I'm like, I mean, if you really want to, there's a lot of art out there about Overwatch characters. It's pretty explicit, including a lot of artists who said, no, we're gonna preserve the butt. If you are wanking while playing Hearthstone, masturbating, I don't need to know that. I don't think anybody needs to know that. And please, for the love of God, don't do it on Twitch because that goes against the rules of Twitch. And I don't think most people don't want to see you there. Terms of service. So, as a Twitch streamer, I will counsel you to not do that, just for the record. I mean, I guess it's like, oh, they change it and it's less sexy, but really, I mean, we're not talking about censoring Penthouse here. Like, oh, there used to be like this magazine was about sex with penetration and stuff. And now we don't have that because the government has stepped in or themselves have censored themselves or something. It's like, we're not talking about something that was already sexual and sensual in that sense. Just something that was done so you could buy the cards because, you like to see cute elf butts, right?
And then like... It's sort of no different than what Magic the Gathering does. When they sometimes reprint cards, they change the art style, they change the flavor text, they keep like the basics of the card the same, but they might change like the art style just to update it.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you prefer one or the other, it's just purely based on aesthetics. And well, even then, like although I guess the difference between Magic the Gathering and this would be that like you still have the other cards. So if you have like an older version of the card and it gets reprinted, you can still use your older version of the cards in tournaments and stuff because it's been reprinted and it's in the current base set. So, but I guess you probably don't have the option to toggle, different versions of the art on Hearthstone. I take it.
True. Yeah, because there's an update. It's gone.
Oh God, that's just. I certainly hope I didn't just give them an idea for like microtransactions. Like, oh crap.
Well, the whole game is a microtransaction. It's a computer collectible card game. Don't worry.
I know, but like they got it covered. It's like, to pay us, an extra $5, and you get the elephant butts.
Yeah. Want to preserve your own cards? Pay us $5 for the card box. Preservation. Something or other. Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. And it's like, yeah, it's Activision. So, and I think one last piece of news, which is, I don't know, it's a piece of news, more a commentary. But we both played Yakuza games, so I thought we might find it interesting. The curse of the Yakuza games. They talk about Pierre Taki. We talked about earlier this year, where he who appeared in Yakuza spin-off Judgment, was picked up on drug charges and then got dropped by Sony. And Sony Music also terminated his band's contract. Last year, another actor, Hiroki Nadejima, was replacing Yakuza 4 Remaster because he was photographed allegedly using cocaine. And he left the entertainment business. Another Miyasako, another actor, came under fire for appearing at a party held with a rather unsavory group of people, probably actual Yakuza, perhaps. And I'm going to, and it actually is Yakuza, because the official terminology is Hansha Kaiteki Seryoku. Hansha Kaiteki Seryoku, which simply translates to anti-social organization. And that, the Yakuza are seen like that. They shoot by Frost attempt to swindle folks out of money. They can be members of organized crime groups, sometimes Boryuku Yukuden, which literally means violent group, but colloquially referred as Yakuza. So Yakuza have both titles, but the Boryukudan is a violent group. They murder and whatnot, kidnap people, and they are Yakuza. Yakuza, by the way, never referred themselves to Yakuza. They refer themselves as, there's another thing that has to do with honorable organization, and they're not illegal. In fact, if you play the Yakuza games, they have their own offices, so they have like actual offices. So being a member of Yakuza is not illegal, but of course the things that Yakuza do are illegal. So
yeah, because it seems like everyone can identify like a Yakuza by the way they dress, and it's like, oh yeah, you're Yakuza. It's like, well, just steer clear of that person because they're trouble, kind of thing. It's sort of like the worst kept secret.
Yeah, and here's another actor who was another comedian, Yoshinari Fukushima. I apologize for my bad, my pronunciation. Who was Mr. Moneybags in Yakuza 0. So.
Yeah, I know Mr. Moneybags.
Yeah, so it seems like there's not really some people we talk about a curse. But the future
like stigma.
Yeah, the future Ame Talk, the long-running variety show he co-host, seems concerned, and sponsors no doubt have concern about Miyasako's accepting payment from a criminal enterprise. But the Kotaku article makes a comparison with Madden, like all the sports stars that probably been caught, physically abusing their spouses and significant others, using hardcore drugs, etc., and don't get banned as much as someone protesting the flag. You know what? That's not a good comparison, Kotaku.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it at that. So it seems like, it seems that essentially, people who are participants in a game that is about Yakuza might at some level, trip over and be associated with certain things like cocaine use and the like, I suppose.
Well, like, could it be? It's not so much like art. It's not people imitating the art, or it's like the real life. It's art imitating real life. Maybe they hire these people because they seem seedy. Hey, you seem kind of criminally like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But no. Want to voice a character in the game? Sure, but I'm not a criminal.
Yeah.
Like, something about you, it just seems like you would fit in like this criminal video game. Oh, I don't know why you say that, but sure. I'll take your money and voice a character.
I will act believably. Do you believe me? Oh, yes.
Wow, it's like almost... Wow, you're so believable. It's like I can almost believe you're a criminal. You're part of a criminal organization. The things. Yeah. Shifty eyes.
Well, that's enough. That's a sort of weird point to end the news section. Now we're going to go into what we were saying we're going to do in this podcast. We have about 15 minutes to start talking about our ideal games. So essentially, this is sort of an exercise in which you, the audience, can join in about the stuff you like about your video games in general. And why do you like them, and what is it about them that is compelling, and what you would like to see more of them in video games. I'm going to start in the very beginning. I want more options in the opening of games, particularly when it comes to difficulty. I want to see more toggles. And I learned this, and that's probably this is not the first game to do it by a long shot, but this one really caught my attention. Was in Pathfinder Kingmaker. There was a toggle for difficulty. There was like the three difficulties: easy, hard, medium, hard, etc. And then you had a custom difficulty, and you could go down the list and toggle things you wanted on and off. And one of the things that went on and off was, if you, because it's a fantasy RPG with a party system, if one of your party members is still up by the end of the combat, then the other party members get up and they're alive, wounded, and they have to be healed and all that, but still alive. And it's like, that's pretty good, especially in a game like that, because what tends to happen in games like that is they can be extremely frustrating. Like, you win the battle, but half of your party are dead, and you have to, if you're lucky and you have the resources, drag them, especially in early mid-game, drag them all the way back to the city, face like half a dozen encounters where you can also get killed, bring them back to life, spend all the gold, all the money, and then go back again to same to fight it before. So it's like, that's a pretty neat stuff. It doesn't say anything about actually how hard the game is, but it allows you to tweak it. So I like to see, colorblind modes, varying control modes, all of that. Wider FOV, right? All those things. I think the more you have that in across the board, the better. So what's something that you would like to see in many a game that would make, an improvement, or something that you like in video games you'd like to see across the board, Chapelman?
So I like time savers, and I don't mean like those microtransactions, time saving mechanics, but something to maybe speed the game up, or essentially kind of make the game a little more easier and a little less grindy. And in terms of, not to say that the difference between like doing that and maybe flat out removing these grind mechanics is that sometimes you do just want to like mindlessly grind at some point and just like, this is fun, this mechanic, I'm fighting random encounters and fighting a bunch of monsters and stuff, that's great. But then there's other times where you may not just have the time and you just want to speed things up. You want to play, but your time is limited, so you kind of want to just speed things up to kind of get through to like the next section, so you don't have to grind 10 hours to get to the next section. Maybe just grind, do it in 2 hours.
Yeah, you could have like a slider about how many resources are required to get something. I think there's a mod for BattleTech, 3025, and I think it has a toggle or a slider where you can choose. I don't know if that's also the basic game, how many wrecks, when you're fighting different robots, right? If you win, you get the wrecks. You get to do salvage. And it usually takes 3 pieces of salvage to get an entire mech. So you could toggle that, and it's like, it only takes 1 or 2, which makes it a little bit easier because you get more mechs, and you can sell them or have them in your roster. Or you can put it more harder, in which case you have to grind more, so that one mech that you really won feels like you really, you got it. I left it a 3. I'm gonna download the mod for next time I play BattleTech. It'll be a no safe scumming affair, right? Unlike every other time I play BattleTech, because I'm a cheater like that. And talking about safe scumming, I would like to see a more varied save states. A lot of games have this right now, but not all of them. Like, I'm playing right now Dark Souls 3, and I love the game, but the fact that it only has one save state is like, it's this or this. And for Sekiro is murder, because I was having problems with Sekiro and was crashing. So then, when it crashed, it corrupted the one save, so I had to start back all over again. I said, I can't play this game. If it had multiple save states, right? Like, and have them separated. Like, these are your quick save slots, right? Or your quick save, that's where it goes. Here's your automatic slots, and this is your, your personalized slots, like the ones you named or you chose to manually save.
Yeah,
because that way you have different. You can select which one. Like, I forgot to save, or I just did a sort of like random quick save, like I pressed F7 or something, and it doesn't, get meshed with the other ones instead of messed up and what have you. Uh,
Yeah, or having to kind of like decide, ooh, which no, which game do I have to delete to make room?
or also be able, if you have like a quick save system, like Skyrim has basically saves the last 3 times you travel, fast travel, something like that, or a loading screen. It saves on every loading screen. Be able to say, okay, I want automatic saves on loading screens, or I want automatic saves on every 15 minutes. Again, a lot of games have that, but I would like to see more of that across the board. Because, yeah, people talk about save scumming, but for example, if you're playing a game in Unity, Unity to this day, it's very powerful, it's very flexible, but it's also very fiddly, especially in its
Mhm.
loading times. And I played too many Unity games in a screen where it's like, oh, we're going to load, crash. Like Battletech still has that thing. It's a Unity thing. It's an inbuilt into Unity where sometimes the game goes like, I'm taking too long. I'm out. And there goes your entire mission, right? And if you don't save scum, even if you don't use those saves, then you lost your entire mission. So it's like, no, right. So what else?
Hmm. Yeah, I almost want to say I want a game that doesn't waste my time. I want a game that's a time waster, but at the same time, I don't want it to waste my time. So again, it goes back to like whether the gameplay mechanics are worth playing, or even if it's like slightly sped up, or maybe even something that's like not in games anymore. It's cheats. It's like in-game like cheats that you can actually activate or put in like a button combo. That's something that I really enjoyed when I replayed Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 4. Is that there was these cheats where it's like, oh, bam, God mode. Not really. It wasn't really God mode, because if something instantly kills you, you get a game over.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that will just constantly kind of give you like regen. It gives you your limit breaks, so it makes you almost invincible. It speeds up the game movements like 3 times, and most of the game it won't speed up like videos or certain cinematics and stuff. It won't speed it up, but it does. It helped a lot trying getting through the game, because I remember replaying Final Fantasy VII like at least like 3 or 4 times. I think each time it took me like 50 to 80 hours,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how long it took me. This time around, it took me like maybe 20 hours
Mm-hmm.
to play the entire game. And granted, I didn't do every single thing like I would have done before, but even then, that would have added maybe an extra 10 hours, which is like a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah. I think all fashioned cheats, just
Hmm.
having cheat codes. I mean,
Yeah, and then this is a thing with like Capcom started doing this. Like, oh look, all these cheats that were usually in the game, $5.
mhm.
Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
I want old cheats because for me, and this is the way I play games.
Hmm.
A game that I really like, and again, there's some place with some games like Dark Souls, but others I like to mod them. Like I played the first time the vanilla game. If I really
Yeah.
like it, I want to go back. And sometimes you want to add more stuff like DLC and stuff like that. But sometimes you want to take shortcuts. In Skyrim, Skyrim has one of the features I really love is that building houses. Like you go and you buy terrain and you build a house, and but in order for you to buy that, you have to farm a lot of equipment and stuff. And like, oh, you need X amount of nails, X you need so many amount of iron. It's like I'm not gonna run around and just go to every single mine and wait for them to reload or whatever. No, I just say, okay, I have 100 gold or 100 whatever, and I just make it, right? Because I know what I want, and my enjoyment doesn't come from farming this stuff. It comes from the building and having. It's like I have this home, and I run around, I sleep there, whatever, and do
Yeah,
other things. You know.
I had the same thing with Fallout 4. It's like I'm not gonna waste my time going outside, go pick up scrap just so I can start building my little uh what they were like outposts
Hmm.
or settlements. That's stupid. Settlements needs help and stuff, but I enjoy play like I spent hours just like playing just building everything and making my settlements, like kind of having fun with it. I just downloaded something that gave me like a button. It's like, oh, 100 of everything or 1,000 of everything. And
Yeah,
that way I didn't even have to bother and just keep playing.
yeah.
And that's the thing too. It's like I miss like a lot of those old cheats. Like I recently played Sonic Mania, and it's like, oh, this reminds me of how often I played Sonic, because it's like the only game I had. a bunch of like Sonic 3 and Sonic 2 and Sonic and Knuckles. And there was a debug mode that you can activate if you pushed in this really long sequence of button presses. But it would activate debug mode, and I was just like, give myself everything or fly around the entire map and see how it loads, and just like, oh, look at all these other paths. And this is after I already beat the game plenty of times and mastered it just by playing it vanilla without cheating.
Yeah.
And it's like it adds to the fun. It sort of creates the fun, and it also kind of gives you an interesting look at like how things are built, and kind of gives you that sort of like behind the curtain. It's like, oh, look, there's all this other stuff I never even knew about.
Yeah, I mean, on that, I would say more. I mean, I think a lot of PlayStation 4 games have it built in because PlayStation 4 has it as a sort of OS, which is photo mode. I would like to say more games with photo mode. I like to say more games with free cam, right? Like built in.
Yeah.
So like, I just want to stop the game. Like I did a lot of free cam when I was playing Mass Effect. And because I want to take different angles and I wanted to see the characters and I wanted to just have like, I wanted, for example, have a GIF of, a graphic or something and just post it. And I love that, right? So have more of those developer tools be there in general. In fact, also talk about that mod tools. I'm not a modder myself, but I see what modders can do. I think at least single player games should always be released with mod tools because that really expands the life of that single player game. I know with life and service, games as service, that's kind of contrary to what people want to do. But if you make it easier for your modders, and it's a popular game enough, I mean, going back to Skyrim, Mass Effect, other games, one of the reasons people keep playing is that they keep modding the game, right? Whether it's hairstyles or armor or whatever, and some more titillating mods out there. But they're there, and it gives a lot of life, and it makes people want to go back. And it also means that when you release the next game, right, you're probably going to take advantage of all those things that modders have done. Even if it's not directly taken from the mods, but those ideas, you're going to have a better game without any expenditure on your own because a bunch of people volunteered to make the last game you made a whole lot better. As long as you don't pull a Bethesda and go like, oh, we're going to kind of make this game and hey, modders, finish it for us. As long as you don't do that, we're good to go.
And something you kind of sort of touched upon with the save slots, chapter selects or level selects. That's something I like in games where it's like, oh, especially if it's something really a long story and it's like, oh, I kind of want to replay that sequence again, but I don't want to have to either happen to make a save. When I first played it, not knowing anything, hopefully I had a save file before them, which might be hours from where I want to be. And then you have you can choose like, oh, I want to start in this sequence and play, or even it's also really helpful when it comes to reviewing, so you don't have to like constantly be making save states and stuff. It's like, oh, chapter select and replay these sections of the game and stuff.
Yeah, and record it and all that. Also more recording tools as well. Like FreeCam also helps with that as well. Built-in recording is something that if you want your game to be popular and make it easier for streamers and YouTubers to be able to do it. I think what's one final thing before we finish. More co-op. Especially in role-playing games. I think I'm going to go back when we talk about specifically about role-playing games probably next week. But I want to see more co-op. I mean, I'm not a multiplayer competitive type of guy. But I would love to have more games where I can, especially drop in, drop out co-op, which is, I know, not easy to do. Mm-hmm. But just the idea of it is fun. It's like, oh, I'm playing this game. Oh, you're playing this game? Okay, let me join in. It's like, okay, we're playing together. Like, I don't know, I'm a streamer. My community wants to jump into Dark Souls. Like, can I have a code? Yeah, you can have a code. You jump in. I'm playing Factorio. I'm playing StarCraft. I'm playing whatever. Okay, you're my next. You're the guy who's helping me, and we can help me together. You know?
And I know like a lot of like those party games have those like mechanics. I mean, sometimes it's like, hey, you can jump in and play, or you can also be a spectator somehow. Like you interact somehow, and you copy like the link on the screen, and then I guess you spectate somehow.
Yeah, or even you're able to modify the game with Twitch commands on the chat. Not technically co-op, but it's still fun. It's like, oh, you want to make things easier or difficult or whatever. People can do. Like Party Hard was a very popular game because it had a lot of that functionality. from the chat. So chats was like, "Oh no, we're gonna make it harder for the cops are gonna show up now," or "Well, this is gonna happen." And if you're willing to roll with it as a player, then more the merrier. So yeah, I mean, more co-op stuff, definitely. I think we're probably going to keep talking about this stuff. We're gonna go from genre to genre because there's a lot of stuff we like, and it's also unless we find a major breaking news about somebody being pushed out of the top of a building or something, in which case we'll talk about that again. Well, it hasn't happened before. Just saying. Then we'll talk about that, but. Hopefully, this is going to be something we're going to be talking throughout the summer because also there's not a lot of games unless you're playing your game. You are buying games on Steam or other sales on the summer. I think the Steam sale ended yesterday or today. But that's that. So thank you everybody for coming. Chapamon, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chapamon pretty much everywhere. I am Chapamon_Aragon on Twitch and Twitter, but I primarily hang out on YouTube under Chapamon.
And you can also find me here, of course, in the Lesson Learn 1 channel. And I'm playing Dark Souls 3. I'm a noob to the game, to Dark Souls 3. I play original Dark Souls. So I'm saying that I'm perfectly willing to help to tips, tricks, ideas, builds. As long as you're not way too much annoying with the, you have to do this kind of thing, which implies that you want to play the game for me. But if you really want to be helpful, and by the way, I'm going to shout out to the Dark Souls community. Every time I play a Dark Souls game so far, you have been lovely. You have been great. Except for you, the invaders. You can fuck right off. just telling you. And you can find us on the Discord. There's a Discord. Just put in the request on the chat, and we'll give you a link. And on the YouTube channel, also it's called Lessons Learned, where we usually repost this and some other videos. So thank you everybody for coming. And as always, we'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.